Dr. Miller here with, and Dr. Miller, again, PhD, not MD. I can't save your life unless it's the use of the barbell, indirectly anyway. All right. Got a journal club here. I don't know what number we're on. We've done quite a few of these. Up in the 20s, I know that. Be sure to check out the other ones as well. That was a book review and some rants and topic-driven videos as well. But this study is single joint exercise results in higher hypertrophy of elbow flexors than multiple joint exercise by Mannarino. Forgive me if I pronounce that wrong, et al. And this was published in 2021 in the Journal of Strength Conditioning Research. A simple study, but I think it raises some good points to talk about, including just some simple exercise prescription guidelines. So the question of the study, by the way, subscribe to my channel. Did I mention that? I probably did. I can't remember. I don't know what date it is half the time anymore. But the gist of the study here is looking at this idea of single joint versus multiple joint exercise. Which one's better? The studies that have been done in the past, and there's not a whole bunch of them, but that looked at this idea of the single joint add anything to multiple joint exercises. And if you look at statistical significance, the kind of general consensus is no. However, if you look at the data itself, the consensus is yes. It's as a supplemental type of exercise, single joint exercise can be valuable, especially when like mind-muscle connection and things like that. It's just what is the predominance in your program? Is it single joint or multiple joint? Don't major in the minors. It'd be better to do multiple joint exercise, especially if time is short. You might not have time for all these single joint exercises. It'd be better to do multiple joint exercises. Now, again, there's context here. If you're trying to push volume and go to failure, single joint exercise on machines may be a better option than doing back squat. Okay, so there has to be some context in some of these studies, in this research literature. As you look at it and you think about it, yes, multiple joint appears to be better. But again, what are we using it for? All right, so let's look at this study, though. It was a very simple study, 8-week study, 10 males, and this is very important to make note of, untrained. Now, it doesn't mean that we just say, well, I'll give up on this, but it is important to consider the results of the study may not apply to those that are trained, okay? But I think it's still of interest. That's why I'm making a journal club on it. So 8 weeks of increasing volume throughout the study, and I'll explain what exercise in a second. The first 4 weeks was 4 sets of 8 to 12 of both exercises. One was multiple joint, one was single joint. And then there was a bump to 6 sets for the last 4 weeks. Okay, so there was a increase in volume. The 2 exercises were the dumbbell row and the dumbbell biceps curl. Okay, and the overlap here is the dumbbell row also uses the biceps. So the idea is that a multiple joint rowing exercise, like the dumbbell row, would use the biceps, where a biceps curl would use exclusively the elbow flexors. Okay. The study design was the participant was their own control. So half of the group had their right arm as a dumbbell row, and half of the group had their left arm as a dumbbell row, and then the other arm was doing the biceps curl over the course of 8 weeks. They trained twice a week. Each set was done to failure. So a session, might be your right arm is going to failure with the dumbbell row for the 4 sets, and then 6 sets, and then the next session, or then the left arm, is doing the biceps curl for the same amount of sets. Okay, the outcome measures at the 8-week period, the first 8 weeks, at the beginning of 8 weeks, all these were tested, and at the end of 8 weeks, these 3 variables were tested. And the variables that were tested were dumbbell row strength and biceps curl strength for both arms. So the biceps curl arm also tested out on dumbbell row strength. Strength was determined by a 10 RM. Okay, and by the way, in the training study, going to failure, the load was adjusted as needed to make sure they stayed in within 8 to 12 repetition range. So 10 RM was the strength. Now, you could argue that 10 RM isn't really representative strength, but it's kind of hard to do when the muscles that's being targeted in this study. The further we get away from 1 rep, the less of an outcome of strength it is. So it might be more of like a quasi-strength endurance strength measurement. Okay, but there's at least some sort of measurement of improvements in strength. How's that? The other outcome measure was hypertrophy, or was the size, improvements in size of the elbow flexors. And again, that's I read this, and there was no muscle specifically outlined. It appears that it was biceps brachii and the brachialis. Having looked at some of these images, that it takes a trained eye to see these muscles. The muscles were imaged at certain time points in the picture, if you want to think of it that way, or not time points, at certain markers, 25%, halfway, and 75%. And so that was the hypertrophy measurement, looking at the thickness of the elbow flexors. And the outcome of the study was, when it came to muscle thickness, the single joint exercise produced significantly more muscle thickness as compared to the multiple joint exercise. Strength-wise, I'll come back to that. Strength-wise, it was about specificity. So the arm that did the dumbbell row saw a greater improvement, statistically more statistically greater improvement in load used, the 10 RM, than the arm that did the biceps curl. And the inverse was true. The arm that did the biceps curl, like that, if that was my right arm and your left arm, and we were both doing the study, we would both max out with 10 RM with biceps. The arm that did the biceps curl had significantly higher improvements in strength in the biceps curl than did the dumbbell row arm. So again, specificity. Whatever exercise the arm did, it got better at. And then the other exercise didn't get as good at, compared to the arm that was working at it. Okay. Now there was improvements in strength in both, but there was a statistical significance. And again, highlighting this linkage to specificity. All right. So what does this all mean? Okay. How does this all fit? Well, we're talking about untrained people here. Keep in mind. But if there's some things that there's some issues here, and I think the authors acknowledge as well. They do, is that we're talking about some biomechanics that are influencing the results of the study. How much the biceps is really contributing to the dumbbell row movement. Now there is elbow flexion occurring. There's no doubt, but with the shoulder position that you're in, how much, right? Is the shoulder influencing how the biceps strength output? Yes. Okay. And so. And that kind of plays into the study, though. Well, then should we do biceps on top of doing dumbbell row? All right. And this is what I would say to you. Number one, remember, it's untrained people. Point number one, strength is specific. So if whatever you do, you're going to get good at that. Is there contributions? Yes. So in other words, if you get a stronger biceps, are you going to be able to row more? Yeah. How much? Not as much as you're going to see improvements in the biceps. If you work on rowing, does that mean you're going to have a better bicep curl? Yeah, a little bit. What's a little bit? I don't know. I couldn't give you an exact number. It depends on who you are and how much rowing you're doing. But are you going to see as much gain in bicep strength and size as you would if you did a biceps curl? No. Okay. Hypertrophy. I kind of said size already, but hypertrophy. How do you get your biceps in this? Like if we reframe this in the study, how do you get your biceps bigger? Do biceps curls. It's pretty simple. And so looking at a program, then I go back to what I said at the beginning. If time is a factor, you want to do multiple joint exercises because the biceps still got, I should stop saying the biceps here. They just use elbow flexors. The elbow flexors were trained in this study. From baseline, there was an improvement, okay, both in strength and muscle size. So it wasn't like the row did nothing to the biceps. However, if you want a bigger biceps, I keep saying biceps, sorry, bigger elbow flexors, okay, you have to do elbow flexion. Imagine that. So if you're setting up a program and you're like, you know what, biceps, elbow flexors, and I'm just going to keep saying biceps. It's just easier. Biceps brachii, there's two biceps. Biceps brachii is important for me. I want big anterior arms, upper arms. Boom. I want big biceps. Well, you need to do some biceps, right? This isn't earth-shaking, but I've heard kind of these silly debates at times about what's more important. And the answer is very simple. Whatever's important to you. If a bigger back is important to you or a stronger back is important for sports, then that's what you should work on. If getting bigger elbow flexors and biceps brachii don't matter in any context, both strength and size, then don't train them. Don't spend the time on it. Spend the time on things you want to get better. I hope that helps. I thought this study was interesting. It's a very simple study. Again, it's untrained people, males. There's only 10 of them, but it just keeps driving home when I read these research articles a lot of time. There are some new things, right? There's no doubt about it. And there's studies that promote, even this one, that promote thinking about things. But the reality is, even if I program, I mentioned this in other videos, that the KISS principle, I did a video a little while ago on that, the KISS program, keep it simple, stupid, right? Go back to these basic exercises. I'm always amazed by that. I've read some of these high-level books, amazing sports scientists that are working with high-level athletes. But even those studies, or even those books, even those brilliant men and women, I'm just trying to think of, yes, men and women, have, if you strip away all the cool stuff and the important modulation and small technique adjustments and program adjustments and monitoring and all these different things, if you strip it all away, it still comes down to these basic exercise prescription pieces. That is progressive overload, specificity, right? Reversibility, individuality, right? All these different things still apply. They still apply. And this study, I think, highlights that well when we even talk about this idea of what type of exercise is more important. It just depends. It just really depends on what you want. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Check out the study. Again, it's a simple study. It's a simple read. It's not perfect by any means. No study is. So research is hard, but I thought it was an interesting study to think about some of these bigger concepts. I'll see you in the next video. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe to this video, like this video, subscribe to the channel. You can tell I'm not very good at this. That's why I probably don't have more subscribers. Either that, I'm just really boring, and that's probably part of it too. I'm glad you stuck with it this long, though. See you in the next video.